Eagle 95.1, WUPN, Paradise, Sault Ste. Marie.
It's time for The Game. Eagle 95.1 proudly brings you The Game, the Twin Sault's only regional and national sports show. For the next hour, we'll get an in-depth look at sports in the Eastern Upper Peninsula and Algoma region. The Game on Eagle 95.1.
The Game Sports Show would like to thank an additional home to the Game Sports Show, Canadian franchise Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, located on 601 Great Northern Road, Sault Ste. Marie. Come in and join Boston Pizza for its numerous specials that are offered. After 9 p.m. daily, come in to Boston Pizza for $9 schooners, $4 rail drinks, and delicious food. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, you're among friends.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Game Sports Show, February the 1st, Thursday, live from Boston Pizza. It's yours truly, David McCaig, alongside my usual contributors, Dane Hancherow, Justin Hykel. Dane, how are you, sir?
Good, trying to stay warm with the weather out there.
Absolutely, it is cold outside, minus 18 degrees Celsius, to be giving you the weather facts over here. Justin, how are you, my friend?
Not too bad. Nice seeing the Leafs win another one tonight.
Absolutely. The Leafs did win another one tonight against the New York Rangers. They also won last night against the New York Islanders. And we're going to get into the Toronto Maple Leafs later on in the show. And fellas, we have an action-packed show here tonight. Let me tell you, this is the show that a lot of our listeners are looking forward to hearing. And we have some very special guests coming on the show. And I'm going to get to the agenda in about 30 seconds or so, maybe a minute. I just got to give a shout-out to Scott Nason, who is our board operator tonight, as always. Mitch Wilson, the great bartender, as we always have. And, of course, to Boston Pizza. And I got to give a shout-out to our additional sponsors as well. We have a lot of additional sponsors. We have 2 homes on the Canada side when it comes to doing the sports show. Here Thursdays, we have Boston Pizza. And Wednesdays, we have Sports Center Bar and Grill. And you can listen to our show yesterday for the Game Sports Show was live. Sports Center yesterday, well, as Dane and myself talking a little bit of In the Pocket. And we also talked basketball. We talked tennis. We talked UFC, we talked baseball, and our good old Wednesday edition called the Round Table segment of the Game Sports Show. We mostly have In the Pocket, we talk all those sports, but we had a great little show there yesterday you could check out on my Facebook page, the website page, and the Podomatic page. The website being www.thegamesportshow.com and snason.podomatic.com for the Podomatic page. And, as a matter of fact, we're going to be getting an upgrade to our Podomatic page that we're going to update to you in the very near future as well. So it's going to be more mobile phone friendly, which is going to be a big use to us for sure. We got additional sponsors as well. North Shore Sports and Auto, Superior Pro Shop, The Salon, and Discover the Canvas here in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. We got the Wicked Sister and Pingator Cleaners in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And then what's on tonight's agenda? That's what everyone wants to hear right now. Well, you can probably see it in the description of the show. And, well, for people that are here right now, eager to know what the agenda is going to be today, quite simple. Right now, you're going to hear this introduction. You're going to have the trivia question in this introduction. We're going to announce the winner from last week. We're going to give you the new question this week. And, well, the prize will be announced this week to the winner, obviously. But the prize is obviously not announced until next week. But make sure you stay tuned into this entire show, but especially this introduction for the trivia question will be coming up shortly. But what's coming up after this introduction? What is up? Well, let me tell you what's up. After the break, we have somebody named Paul Maurice stopping on by the Game Sports Show, the Winnipeg Jets head coach. Be myself and Dane talk to Paul Maurice, and let me tell you, it's an interview that you for sure don't want to miss. It was one of the best interviews I've ever been a part of, and he's a fan of the show and also a friend, and you're going to love to hear from Paul Maurice. And after Paul Maurice, we have someone who's a very special guest as well, who is not a stranger to the Game Sports Show whatsoever, Joe Bowen. Another fan of the show and another listener. Joe Bowen stopped on by to talk to myself, and Joe had to share his insights on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he even shared a show he is currently watching on Netflix, something that I'm definitely going to be starting this week for sure. So those are 2 interviews that you definitely got to hear, and definitely big interviews for the Game Sports Show Paul Maurice, of course, being a Sioux native and having tremendous success with the Winnipeg Jets this year, even though they've been injury-riddled this year quite severely. And Joe Bowen, of course you know who that is, 3,000-plus games, the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Definitely interviews that you want to hear. Fellas, after we talked to Paul Maurice and talked to Joe Bowen, we're going to be talking about the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds after that, and a little bit of NHL talk, and of course our multiple choice segment to conclude the show. Fellas, big show. Justin, are you ready?
Couple guests. I think I'm ready.
Dane, couple big guests. Are you ready?
Yeah, always ready, buddy.
Absolutely. Very excited for you, the listeners, always to hear the show as well. And we thank you for stopping and making us a part of your night. And, well, here at Boston Pizza is a big game coming this Sunday. It's called the Super Bowl. We have the New England Patriots against the Philadelphia Eagles, and there's plenty of Super Bowl parties locally. Sports Center Bar and Grill has their party, but also Boston Pizza has quite the party going for the Super Bowl. They have a TV going on as a door prize, 55-inch to be exact. You can get purchase tickets at the door. You can get in touch with Boston Pizza. You get your tickets and book your reservation today to watch the Super Bowl on Sunday. Going to be the most watched event on Sunday, I believe. I think that's very fair to assess. Don't you think, Dane?
I can't imagine there's going to be too many other things on TV that people are going to be tuning into over the Super Bowl, at least viewer-wise.
Absolutely. And now, fellas, I want to jump into what the trivia question was last week, the winner. And the trivia question this week, before we take our break, can we welcome in our first very special guest, Paul Maurice. The trivia question from last week was, when was Boston Pizza open in Sault Ste. Marie? We got plenty of answers, but the first answer was from Stefan Botterill. Stefan Botterill has been the winner selected for the trivia question last week. And what does Stefan win? Well, he wins 2 free tickets. No, not to the Super Bowl, but he wins 2 free tickets to the Super Bowl party here at Boston Pizza, which is of $20 value. And he gets free entry into the TV draw for the 55-inch TV that's on the door prize. And I'm sure Aaron Grisdak is going to throw a little bit of a treat in there for him as well in terms of an appetizer. So congratulations to Stefan Botterill. You got 2 tickets, and hopefully you're taking your wife or your girlfriend or an individual of your choice. But congratulations to Stefan Botterill for winning those prizes from Boston Pizza. Now, this next question this week that you can be a part of, fresh loose slate this week. New start for everyone who submitted answers. You got a new win a great prize, or prizes, courtesy of Boston Pizza. So what's the question going to be this week? I think it's going to be a tricky one, because I know one that kind of fooled me, and I had to verify my answer by looking it up online to ensure, as we all did here. The question this week: who was the captain of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds when they won the Memorial Cup in 1993? Once again, who was the captain of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds when they won the Memorial Cup in 1993? Submit your answer. There's via different ways now. You can submit it to me on Facebook, but we also have an email. The Game Sports Show, all one word, at gmail.com. You can submit that. Once again, that's the Game Sports Show at gmail.com, where you can submit your answer on there. You can reach out to me on Facebook still, or reach out to us via the website or Twitter. But if you want to start using the email, that is going to be the best access in terms of submitting your answer. And what's the prize going to be next week? You're going to have to wait until next week for what the prize is, as we like to keep everybody waiting in regards to that. And we're even throwing a little bit of a curveball this week with that question that I will repeat twice. Who is still a part of the organization today that was a part of that team that won the Memorial Cup in 1993? Again, who is still a part of the organization today when they won the Memorial Cup in 1993? So again, the question is, who was the captain of Soo Greyhounds when they won the Memorial Cup in 93? And the bonus question, who is still a part of the organization today when they won the Cup in 1993? When you have the question answered, you win the prize that was already agreed on. If you get the bonus question as well, we also may throw in a little bit of additional prize, or we may select 2 winners this week. So make sure you submit those answers on our email, or as I instructed, to Facebook, Twitter, and pretty soon it'll be Instagram, and also the website as well. And before we take our first break, I wanted to bring up something that's been quite the concern from listeners. I wanted to kind of elaborate on it. I've been brought forward some concerns with not being able to access the Podomatic page and listen to the show via mobile. Now, there is ways around that, as I mentioned earlier in this particular introduction, that we are upgrading that to make it more mobile friendly, but until that is fully effective in the very, very near future, like within the coming days, so just so you can access the show, you can open up the Podomatic page after clicking it as a web browser. Or you can simply just download the Podomatic app and it'll play and stream right from there from your phone. I recommend downloading the Podomatic app and then playing it that way, but if you want to avoid downloading, you can simply open it up in the web browser and play it that way and access it via Bluetooth in your car or from home or while you're on your lunch at work or simply just at work listening to us as well. So I wanted to address those concerns, that those are being dealt with as well, so you are able not just to enjoy it on the laptop or live or anything like that. If you do miss it, it'll be more user friendly on your mobile. And also, before we go to break, gotta mention the Super Bowl party here again for Boston Pizza, the Big Game Party, where the door prize is a 55-inch TV, $20 tickets, and they're still taking reservations, and they're gonna have some fun activities going on during the Super Bowl as well. So that's something you do not want to miss out on. If you're looking for something to do on Sunday, the Boston Pizza Big Game Party is definitely an option for you. Well, Justin, well, Dane, we're gonna take our very first break. We're gonna sip on these Molson products, enjoy some pizza. And after the break, we have our very first extremely special guest stopping by the Game Sports Show, Sioux native and head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, Paul Maurice. Certainly something you don't want to miss. So don't go anywhere. After you hear back from our sponsors, we bring in Paul Maurice. Don't touch that dial. The Game Sports Show would like to thank an additional sponsor and additional home to the Game Sports Show, Sports Center Bar and Grill. Sports Center Bar and Grill, located on 624 Wellington Street West, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Sports Center rated top sports bar for the second year in a row. At Sports Center, enjoy their famous 75-cent wing night along with delicious Molson products on tap, along with a great atmosphere and other great food options available as well. Sports Center Bar and Grill, the Sioux's best sports bar.
Get wicked at the Wicked Sister. You'll find the best tasting food for the whole family. Start off with some appetizers like the crab dip, served with warm naan bread strips and soft pretzel bites, or their antibiotic and hormone-free boneless chicken wings with 5 choices of sauces. Entrees include the barbecue pulled pork sandwich, the #1 selling drunken cow burger, or Philly cheesesteaks, and they're on special all day Thursdays. The Wicked Sister also offers a gluten-free menu and catering. Bring the whole family. The Wicked Sister, downtown Ashman Street, open 7 days a week.
The Game Sports Show would like to thank an additional home to the Game Sports Show, Canadian franchise Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, located on 601 Great Northern Road, Sault Ste. Marie. Come in and join Boston Pizza for its numerous specials that are offered. After 9 p.m. daily, come in to Boston Pizza for $9 schooners, $4 rail drinks, and delicious food. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, you're among friends. And welcome back to the Game Sports Show. It's yours truly, David McCaig. I'm alongside Dane Hancherow. And we have a very special guest with us, the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets and Sault Ste. Marie native, Paul Maurice. Paul, how you doing?
Great, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Of course. How's everything going? How's life in Winnipeg?
Just fine, thanks. The weather's cool, as usual this time of year, but life's good. Just coming out of the All-Star break, so we're getting back to work today.
Yeah, I imagine despite the All-Star break, you've been keeping busy. Did you get a chance to watch the All-Star festivities this past weekend?
Yeah, I did, because we got 2 guys in and they changed the format, so you wanted to watch it. It was good. I thought the game was better than it had been in the past. The guys, a little more pace to it. They didn't fool around quite as much, and it was good. I enjoyed the weekend. Absolutely.
Blake Wheeler and Connor Hellebuck there. I know Blake yesterday on TV was giving you much praise for his development. It must be nice to hear that from the players and also see, Connor and Blake having such good seasons.
Yeah, well, and it's nice. I have nothing to do with Blake Wheeler's success. He's a really unusual man, and there are players that come through your teams over the years that actually make you better. And Blake would be one of those guys. He has the ability to drive himself every single day. So it's in how he eats, how he recovers, how he trains, and then how he hits the ice. So he's just the consummate leader for our program. We've got so many young players here, and to have your A guy on your lineup to go that hard every day, it's the perfect example for me. So I can grab any 20-year-old here and say, all you have to do is work as hard as that guy, and you're going to be just fine. And Blake does it so consistently that there's never those off days. That's the hockey player, but the leader. he's developed into for our group. Is perfect timing for everything. He's a very intense man, but at the same time, he has the ability to reach out to people and recognize when a young player is struggling. He has a great memory of himself coming into the league and having all those challenges when you first get to this league. And Blake's able to share his experiences with those guys. So he's been just the perfect man, the perfect leader and player for our team at this time in our development.
Absolutely, he is the captain of your team, and he's definitely shown that on the ice. Paul, you were born in Sault Ste. Marie, as everybody knows, coaching experience in the NHL with Hartford, Carolina, Toronto, back with Carolina. You're also in the KHL before coming back to the NHL in 2014 with the Jets, where you've been since. And, going into the All-Star break, you're 29-13-8, top in your division. What has made everything all come together for such a positive first half of the season?
Really, really good players. At the end of the day, and you have to go back a few years when I first got here, there was a real defined plan in terms of how this group was going to move forward. And we knew we had some good young players, and clearly we lucked out with the Patty Liney lottery draft pick. But we had a number of really good, strong young players, and we played them. And we played them for 2 years and struggled a bit at times with that and with injuries. But now we have still a very young team, but they're experienced at a young age, so we expect a fair amount of them. The other nice thing that's gone on here is they've been able to kind of grow together. A big chunk of this team now has stayed together for a couple of years, so there's an identity forming in terms of how we play. There's a camaraderie off the ice and enjoyment about coming to the rink. And everybody has a bit of a piece of it. You mentioned Connor Hellebuck at the All-Star game. He would be maybe the poster child of that. A draft pick came in, showed some really good signs, and then last year we made the decision to run him as a number one guy, and we struggled with that, and he did as well, but all those things added up to a really important learning experience for him and for our team. He has a great summer last summer in terms of training, becoming a pro, and now he's starting to be noticed for his good work, but also he's developed that. So he's worked his way into becoming an all-star player for us, starting with your goaltending and then moving out. Such an important thing that maybe in the past 6 or 7 years this franchise has kind of been looking for that guy to come in and solidify that position at net. He's been great. That's kind of the theme of the team. We had good young players here, not a lot of whom spent a tremendous amount of time in the American League, so it was on the job training. And we're still a real young team. We still have lots of areas to improve. But we've got some pretty good strength at the most important positions, and we've been able to survive some injuries this year. And positive part of that is, again, young players getting more minutes than maybe they normally would, and they've developed in that hole.
Absolutely. And you kind of just attested to this too, Paul. Dane and I feel the same. You've had such a strong D-core, good prospects. Some of you have Dustin Bufflin there, Trouba. Trouba we're going to get to a little bit later in the show, but you also had a good forward core, good young guys. You said, Oliver, goaltending has always been kind of that question mark in terms of with the media's perspective is a good way to put it. But now, you got Steve Mason in the summer. That was the plan. You had him and Connor Hellebuck as your 1A, 1B, or 1A, whatever you want to call it. But now, obviously, Connor Hellebuck has, done extremely well. You must be proud of what the goaltending has kind of done to really kind of, good way to put it, quiet the media in terms of the doubts in net.
Yeah, it's an interesting word because in a lot of ways that's what our goaltending's done. They've quieted the game down for us. And I think, that first comment about the D-core, and when you look at our group, our top 6 forwards are very young. 3 of them are 21 or younger. Mm-hmm. And then we've added a veteran like Matt Hendricks, and Adam Lowry is now 24. So we've developed a bit better defensive strength and structure. Jake Trouba's not a kid anymore. Josh Morrissey and Jake Trouba were in our number one pair. And Josh is in his second year in the NHL, so that's been developed. But we've had and added players like Tyler Myers, who missed the entire year for the better part of the entire year last year. But you've got Bufflin, Enstrom, and Kulikov. So we added some veteran pieces kind of into that with that young core. And then our game quieted down. So it's not just the amount of shots, it's more the kind of shots that we're giving up now. We're giving our goaltender a better chance to be good. He doesn't have to go post to post quite as often. Doesn't have to be as dynamic in the net. And that suited Connor's style. He's a big man. He moves well, but he's very square and he's very efficient. So the game is quieted quite a bit on the defensive part. And then some of it's just situational. last year and the year prior, we would be behind in a game or chasing a game so often. Some of it had to do with the injuries that we faced, but it becomes the style of hockey that you play. So when you're down 1 or 2, your game opens up and you become a rush team and your risk tolerance goes way up. And you really do put your goalie in a position to face more odd man rushes. So we've gone from 27th in the National Hockey League odd man rushes against to number 1. And that is better pitches, better decisions, but also when you're leading a game, your risk profile drops and you don't take as many chances. So a bunch of things have kind of come together, a little more veteran back end, a little more veteran up top, and some of that is just developed veteranness. They've played a few years together. And having leads in games, then your game becomes that game. That's your identity. You're not chasing games. Even if we get down 1 or 2 now, we don't open the thing right away. It lets our goaltender be a little bit better, a little bit stronger, and all of that means the most important thing is they all have a little more confidence in what they're doing, so you get a better hockey player.
Absolutely. Dave?
I got a question. With the you guys have been plagued by injury this year, and despite that, you guys have been very successful being at the top of your division. Both key injuries with Mark Scheifele, Bufflin, Toby Enstrom, and now Jake Trouba. Could you just maybe speak to about some individuals on the team that have stepped up in their absence, or has it been just a total team effort to kind of stay consistent with the success that you guys have having?
Good question. The answer is both. We've had the individuals, and the first would be Blake Wheeler goes from the wing to center position in Mark Scheifele's absence. And Blake, kind of came into the league as a centerman, but wouldn't have played it then for much. I mean, he played 2 games last year for us at center with some injuries that we had. But he's been the key driver there. Andrew Kopp, Adam Lowry is the other guy that's been out quite a bit. So those are 2 of your top 3 centermen are out of your lineup. And Andrew Kopp came into the center position, which he had played on the 4th line before, but now he moves in. And those 2 guys really, really important. Our blue line is unusual. We've got 3 kind of high-end right-handed defensemen in Trouba, Bufflin, and Myers. And all of our defensemen at one point or another are kind of in my office saying, hey, I can play more. So while we've missed those, and we're going to miss Jake here for an extended period of time, there are other players. There's not a lot of teams that can run 3 guys on one side of the ice that all would like to play 25 minutes. So when you lose one, you can survive it a bit. So with Trouba out, both Bufflin and Myers will get closer to that 25-minute mark in the game. And then we've got some good younger players. Tucker Pullman was a player that we signed. He's not an 18-year-old. This guy's 24. He's got a lot of college experience, so he'll step in. Ben Sherrod's been our 7th defenseman, but in the past he's run long stretches of times in that 20-minute mark. So we've had a number of guys that have been able to come in that aren't new to big minutes. So when you have an injury, you're concerned that you're going to take a guy that plays 12 and now you got to play him 18. How long will we be able to maintain that? And you understand that when you move up in minutes, you also move up in competition, so you're playing against better players. But we've had a fairly good number of guys, a unique situation certainly on our blue line, that we have men there that are used to playing in that mid-20 range, and now they get a chance to do that. So nobody likes an injury, nobody's happy when a guy goes down, but we have a fair number of fairly excited men here that get a chance to play a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, definitely impressive what you guys have been able to do with all those injuries. Would you be able to give us any kind of status update on Mark Scheifele if he's returning anytime soon?
Yeah, he's back on the ice. We think he's going to be a quick healer. His was a 6 to 8 week injury. We're hoping that it's a lot closer to 6 than the 8. So we're thinking right now about 2.5 weeks from here, he should be a player for us.
That's big, and that's going to be a big addition to have back in your lineup with an already lineup who's definitely stepped up. A lot of guys, as you mentioned, stepping up. And going into the second half now with the All-Star break weekend kind of in the rearview mirror, going into that half, as the coach, what do you do to keep the team mentally prepared? Keep them on track and bring forth the same success, if not better success, in the second half of the season that you had in the first season on the road to the playoffs?
Well, we've got a positive and then a couple of challenges. The positive is we lead the league in road games. So we've already played 29. We've got 12 left here. We're going to run 10 straight at home here coming out of the break. I've never done that before, but we've been a very, very strong home team. So that's the real positive. The challenge will be the Central Division that we're in is so difficult, and so you have a bad week and you can go from first to being out of the playoffs, and that's true of any of these teams. So very competitive group there, and our strength of schedule now. So we would play a big chunk of our games going in are going to be against playoff teams, which is for whatever reason with the schedule, and it's probably due to the fact that we play in the Central Division. That's true every year. We're going to fence the heaviest competition. We come out of the break, we've got the two best. We've got Tampa and we've got Vegas to start, and we'll run a bunch of games there. So keeping them, you know what, the mentality, I've always found it almost gets easier and easier to coach as the year goes on, because there's a change right after kind of U.S. Thanksgiving, because that's usually around the time that there's a bunch of teams that realize that they don't push then, they're not making the playoffs. So there's a gear change then, and there's always been a gear change kind of after the All-Star break. We felt it happened after the 5-day break that's new to our league now, but certainly after the All-Star break, it's a full-on push for the playoffs. So all of these games get ramped up, and everybody knows it. Every veteran guy in that room has been through it enough. So it almost, the emotions of it and winding your team up and the motivating your team becomes easier to do, because everybody can feel that pressure building. Certainly when you play in Canada, you're made aware of it every single day. Yeah. So that part, for me, the big challenge now is timing your rest. And that would be something that's probably new in the National League. This is my first, these 4 years here is my first time in the Western Conference. The travel is completely different. The cost to the players' bodies is completely different in Winnipeg than it would have been on the East Coast. So my biggest challenge in the last two months of the season is going to be where do you get the right recovery? When do you push? When do you pull off the pressure? But in terms of guys getting wound up for the games, that actually becomes easier.
Absolutely. Dave McCaig here alongside Dane Hancherow with special guest Paul Maurice stopping onto the Game Sports Show. And you were talking about in the Central Division, where obviously the Winnipeg Jets are currently in first, 29-13-8 with 66 points, currently going back to the action at the All-Star break. And arguably, Coach, you got quite a competitive division. You have the Predators right up your rear end. You got the St. Louis Blues, you got the Dallas Stars, and you got the Colorado Avalanche. And Colorado, a team that has done quite well recently too. A very, very, very high competitive division. And going into that, obviously each game means something, and each game is it's a must-win game, especially if you play your own division. And going into the deadline, you got Scheifele coming back, which does fill a hole. It's like an own trade of sorts. But if you could comment, do you maintain status quo to try to put yourself over the top in the division with the trade, or do you count on acquisition? Do you see the organization being active at the deadline, or if active, what pieces do you see potentially added, or would you like to see the team maintain status quo?
Yeah, we're in a bit of an unusual situation, and you're right about our division. Chicago's in last place, so that tells you how good it is. They're still a real fine team with great players. Yeah. What we probably, a lot of teams will look to add a certain kind of depth, but a lot of our depth is actually young here. So when you looked at the lines going into tomorrow's game against Tampa, our fourth line will have Matt Hendricks on it. That's a veteran, but it's going to have Kyle Connor and Jack and maybe Jack Roslovic on that line. Those are two really young players. So I think we'll be very careful about what kind of depth we look to add, because our depth is young and we want that experience. And we're talking about pretty good players here. So we're not talking about guys who have in Kyle Connor's situation, he's got 15 goals. So we're going to want him to play, and we don't think we can go out and get a better fourth liner than that anyway. The question will be, is there enough out there where you could say I can put a guy in our top six, or a real solid defensive player to play with Adam Lowry, that kind of thing. So we would be in a far more specific market. I think we're looking at guys at this point that you could clearly think that make your hockey team better, and then those deals aren't easy to make. So those are the big ones. As far as adding pieces, that will be kind of what happens in the last 2 or 3 days, I think, going into the break. We're not looking at our group and saying we have a major need in terms of depth, because we have a lot of young players, and even some young players that are playing in the American Hockey League, because our American Hockey League team's done very, very well this year, that we're more likely to look at those guys being our own, that we would build our depth from our group. But if there's a player out there that fits a definite improvement in our top, let's say half the team, quarter of the team, then I think we'd have to look at that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely an exciting time for the Jets now and in the future. And speaking of the future, the NHL announced that you guys will be heading over to Finland for a couple regular season games. And I would just like your opinion on what it kind of means to Finnish superstars like Patrick Laine and Alexander Barkov being able to go back home to showcase their skills in an NHL setting.
It's great for especially those players, right? The dream over there is to play in the National Hockey League, but they just don't get to see it. There's a lot of really great fans that stay up and watch the games later, tape them and watch them the next day. But I think it's very, very important. So many great European players in our league that they get an opportunity to go home and show the fans the league that they're in. So I've done it once before. About 8 years ago, we played over in Helsinki to start a season. It was a great environment, and it was a really good experience. I think this is different because they're going to put it in, I think, November, which is mid-season, so there's more challenges with that. But I liked it. I thought it was a great experience. I know that with the Finnish players we have, and certainly we're talking about some pretty high-end Finnish guys going back there. It'll be a great event, and it's good for our players and our team to, there's not monotony, but certainly have a great memory about the National Hockey League playing in Europe.
How about, like, in terms of you as a head coach, going overseas? I know it's very exciting to promote the game overseas, and you've also coached in the KHL. So is it good, as a coach, do you feel it's great for the NHL to go over there and use regular season games in Europe? Are you a big fan of that for the game?
You know what, I am. I really am. So part of that, you're right, comes from my KHL experience. You get over there and you realize that the passion is there for hockey. I know these are smaller countries that we're talking about, not Russia, but the passion for hockey is enormous over there, and they don't get that chance. That's why the World Championships are such a big deal over there, and the Olympics are such a big deal. That's their kind of interface with some of the best players in the world, so they don't get to see their heroes, and that's what these guys are, no different than Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid is in Canada. The Liney's of the world and Timo Solani and all the great names in each country are absolutely heroes, but rarely do they ever get a chance to see these guys play live. It'd be a very select few people that get to travel to see them live. So this is really a great way for them to see the NHL game, and for all these young kids, and that's what at the end what this whole thing is all about. These young kids get a chance to be inspired to see their heroes play in the best league in the world and see a different brand of hockey that's really fast and really exciting. But as you guys know, the game's completely different on TV than it is sitting in a building, and now they'll get a chance to do it. So I think it's really important.
And speaking of a building in Winnipeg, such an electrifying atmosphere. I think that's also an understatement. I feel that it's one of, if not the loudest buildings in the National Hockey League, and they proved that in the playoffs a few years back. Obviously, the playoffs ended the way you wouldn't want to against Anaheim when you played them, but you were also a younger roster at that time too. So, but the atmosphere in Winnipeg is so electric, and like I said, one of the most passionate fan bases in the NHL. The feeling must be in pure excitement in Winnipeg. Like you being there, the fans, it must be the talk. Jerseys must be walking around and coming off the shelves, and how important is the success of the Jets for the city of Winnipeg in general?
Yeah, you know what? It's just such a great story here, and having them having lost the team and then coming back, there's still a completely different appreciation for it. So we're not a big market. Yeah, it's cold up here, and like
I heard
when games are on, it's a big deal in this town. But there's a real connection between the players and the fans. Maybe it's because you run into these guys. The town's not that big. There's certain coffee shops you're pretty sure you're running into a Winnipeg Jet. They're just regular guys. So there's a real connection, and then the building itself, the physical plant that we play in, the seats they've got a great slant to it, so the fans are right there. There's not a bad seat in this house. No. When they sing the national anthem, they sing the national anthem here. It's wired before the puck drops, and it is a special place. The appreciation for the game of hockey and for the NHL game here is just spectacular. It's off the charts. So when a player comes here, it doesn't matter whether he's Canadian or where he's from, and he gets through that national anthem, he's wired. So that energy that we have is specific to our building, and there's some great buildings around the league, and everybody has its own feel. People here are pretty darn excited when the puck drops, and they talk about it the next day, and there's lots of opinion and excitement and passion for our game. So it really does make Winnipeg a special place.
Absolutely, and it's funny, before you answered that, I heard it's cold, dark, and Wi-Fi. I heard it's kind of tough out there. I heard when you had your comments back, Paul, and your comments back were so great. Like you said, you're playing in a beautiful city. You're playing the game that you love, and there's individuals that are doing work that they're not proud of that they're doing, that have to earn living, and people that are earning living in the National Hockey League is a dream for a lot of individuals, especially myself and even Dane here playing, and the listeners, a lot of listeners out there that are subscribers of the game that were previous hockey players that are currently professional hockey players as well, and to have the luxury of playing in any city in NHL is beautiful, especially Winnipeg. You know, I really liked your response to those comments that I saw on Sportsnet. When you heard about that, I'm sure you got a good little chuckle out of it.
Well, you know what? So the head coach of the team is one of my best friends, and he called right after and said, "Geez, I'm sorry that came out. It's a tough thing to do." So they got asked a question about what's the worst. It was in the summer and it was in a light atmosphere, but I got the comments as I'm walking out to talk to the media. And normally I just let it go, but it's a pretty good gig. You know, yes. I mean, you can find anything in your life to complain about, but working in the National Hockey League, you can't be that tough, right? I mean, no. It's a great job, and I guess for me, it more for the fans of Winnipeg. They love this sport. They love this sport and this team and this game with as much passion as any other market. And I hate the idea of being disrespectful to that idea that we would not like someplace when these people love the game so much and they pay the bills and they support us and they sell it out every night. This is a wonderful, wonderful place to live and raise a family. To be honest with you, it's a big Sault Ste. Marie. And
awesome.
I clearly remember driving down the road in Carolina one day with my wife saying, the great sadness here is that my kids don't ever get to grow up the kind of way that we did. She's from a small town in southern Ontario, so that you miss some of that, right? The snow going across the road, the coldness in the winter. It's home. So we moved up here, and this is home. So I'm a little protective of this place. No different than if somebody was beacon Sault Ste. Marie.
Absolutely.
It's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family, and you know that there's sunnier places and there's warmer places. It's just we're in Canada. We're in the winter, man. It's going to be a little chilly up here.
It is going to be a little chilly, and sometimes the Wi-Fi spotty. Who cares? You're still doing the best thing that you would ever want in life. And you know what? When I saw your comments all over social media, you know, some people get put on the spot, you know, like and you know how it is with media, and myself and Dane even know with certain media questions and players, they get asked questions that kind of throw them under the bus, if you will, and they're forced to answer. And sometimes they don't think when they answer. Everyone's been guilty of that as well. I'm sure you've had your fair share of kind of laughable moments.
You're 100% right. Like if you answer enough questions over a period of enough time, you're going to say something you wish you hadn't said. And these guys were just like I said, I talked to Pete DeBoer the next day. He was mortified more that he got asked that question. Those guys did, and they got out because apparently all three of those guys are just great guys, salt of the earth kind of guys, and they felt bad too. So it's over, it's done with, and Winnipeg's a great place.
Absolutely. Dave McCaig alongside Dane Hancherow and special guest Paul Maurice. Paul, we appreciate you coming by, but before we let you go, there's two things I like to ask my special guests, okay? And one being like a personal question outside the rink and a funny question. Firstly, outside the rink, you know, you from the Soo, I'm going to guess, I have a guess what your answer would be, but outside the rink, what do you enjoy doing, like hobby-wise?
You know what? It's changed over the years, probably geographically. But if I was given a choice to do something for 2 hours, it would be go fishing on Lake of the Woods with. I got a brother that lives in Sault Ste. Marie, Shane.
Yep.
And I got a brother who lives in Waterloo, Mike, and they were up here on Lake of the Woods fishing with their kids, and it was about as good a time as I've had. I can remember in a long period of time. So if I had 2 hours and I had to pick something, it wouldn't be ice fishing either. I'd wait for the summer to happen, and then we'd go down to Lake of the Woods and do a little fishing.
Absolutely. And lastly, for the funny question, the most popular one that was actually sent in from the listeners that people wanted me to ask you, because I did a little poll out there and we had a lot of responses, and this was the most popular one. When you go to Tim Hortons or make your coffee at the comfort of your own home, what do you take in your coffee?
Oh, it's black always. So when I can remember the very first cup of coffee I ordered. I was at a really tiny rink just outside of Chatham, Ontario, with a former, eventually, and general manager in the NHL, and we ordered coffee. He said, "Kid, drink your coffee black because you're going to drink coffee in a lot of really bad rinks, and you never know if they got creamer or if they got sugar. So just drink it black." So that's been it. The rest of my life, it's It's the same order, depending. Tim Hortons is a medium with a shot of espresso, and if it's at Starbucks, it's a blonde roast, and that's it.
Oh, that's awesome. You see, I'm not really a big enjoyer of coffee. Dane, I don't know if you enjoy coffee.
Yeah, no, I'm a black guy.
Okay.
You can't work in the NHL as a coach unless you can drink a lot of coffee.
And I also got to say, Shane also said to make sure I said hi to you. I know you guys communicate back and forth, but definitely can't go without saying give a shout out to Shane, obviously. So he told me to say hi to you while we were talking here. And Paul, I wanted to thank you, for coming by to the Game Sports Show. Good luck the rest of the year, and hopefully we can have you on in the very near future, playoff time or something like that.
Anytime, fellas. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. We're going to be right back here on the Game Sports Show. When we come back, we have Joe Bowen stopping by. Don't touch that dial.
The Game Sports Show would like to thank a list of additional sponsors. North Shore Sports and Auto, new location located on 647 McDonald Avenue, Sault Ste. Marie. A family-owned and operated business with doing business in Sault Ste. Marie for over 10 years. Loads of products available for your enjoyment for all seasons. North Shore Sports and Auto, we understand the importance of quality service and products, and we work hard to ensure that all customers have a positive experience before and after each and every sale. North Shore Sports and Auto, meeting all of your new and pre-owned equipment needs. Special thanks to Salon. The Salon, located on 589 2nd Line East, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Owned and operated by Mike Cuglietta. Book your appointment today at 705-941-9191 or via online at https://thesalonsoo.as.me-. The Salon, making the Soo beautiful, one haircut at a time. As well as a shout out to the Soo Pee Pro Shop. The Soo Pee Pro Shop, located inside the Community First Credit Union Soo Pee Arena on 285 Northern Avenue East, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Owned and operated by Jeremy Paquin and ran by Larry Monroe. Soo Pee Pro Shop, for over 40 years, meet all of your skate sharpening, skate repair, and hockey needs. Also to Discover the Canvas. Discover the Canvas, located on 317 Wellington Street West, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. A beautiful new renovated building owned and operated by expert artist and Sioux native Katrina Thibodeau. Katrina taking her talents of the ink in Sault Ste. Marie and truly creating the best and most realistic art locally. Call Katrina today at 705-450-8099 or email her at discoverthecanvas@gmail.com to book your tattoo or consultation today.
The Game Sports Show would like to thank an additional home to the Game Sports Show, Canadian franchise Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, located on 601 Great Northern Road, Sault Ste. Marie. Come in and join Boston Pizza for its numerous specials that are offered. After 9 p.m. daily, come in to Boston Pizza for $9 schooners, $4 rail drinks, and delicious food. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, you're among friends.
Hi, this is Paul Maurice from the Winnipeg Jets, and you're listening to the Game Sports Show.
And welcome back to the Game Sports Show. It's yours truly, as always, Dave McCaig here. I actually don't have Dane and Justin with me at this current time. You just get to hear my voice for this special part of the show. And Dane and Justin not being beside me at this time, I wanted to thank Paul Maurice for coming by to talk to us. Now we go from one very special guest to another very special guest, whom is not a stranger to the Game Sports Show. The voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Joe Bowen. Joe, how you doing, my friend? And thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure. We're doing quite well, thank you. I hope you guys are doing well, too.
Absolutely. Here in Sault Ste. Marie, it's quite snowy. It is winter, so it's not a surprise by any means. But
I'm here in Toronto, too.
Oh, it's just cold everywhere. You know what? I kind of miss the summer, enjoying my pool time. However, what that means when there's snow on the ground, that means hockey is in full flight in the season, so that's not as bad when it's winter time. You can listen to another show of Joe and myself, earlier in 2017, where Joe stopped by. You can simply check out that episode, checking out the Game Sports Show website, the radio station Facebook page, or also the Podomatic page, where we kind of went into Maple Leaf talk, Joe and myself, and when Justin was there. But we also went into Joe's kind of background and being over 3,000 games with the Leafs. So today, Joe, since you're not a stranger to the show, we're just going to talk a lot of Maple Leafs and post of All-Star Game weekend. So if you're ready to go, I'm ready to go.
Absolutely.
Awesome. After All-Star weekend is passed now, obviously the second half of the season getting underway. How was your weekend? Did you enjoy some stuff and enjoy the All-Star festivities at all this past weekend?
I watched a little bit of the All-Star festivities, but not an awful lot. I got to watch my son play hockey a couple of times, and then I did a Major League sit-down with a series from Britain called Peaky Blinders, and I've been enjoying that. So that's been a the major part of the entire operation here.
Absolutely. It's good to get a break sometimes too. And Peaky Blinders, I'm going to have to give that a little check out.
But it's a great show about Irish mob back in just after the First World War. It's a very interesting series.
Is this a series you can enjoy on Netflix?
Oh yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's easy access. I'm gonna have to get maybe started on that tonight. Tonight's be my first night to kind of have to myself, so I'm hoping maybe I can start that series. But this weekend, with the All-Star game, it was entertaining. The fans like to watch it. It was in Tampa, Florida. And one part that I liked, that I'm sure that you saw on social media or even saw on TV, Jack Eichel and Austin Matthews sharing a moment with doing the arm signal together with the ref after the disallowed goal for the Atlantic Division in the first game. I'm sure that's kind of stuff is pretty funny to see.
Well, I guess, and it started with Matthews having what should have, I think, been credited a goal waved off, and then scoring a few seconds later and emphatically making sure the referee and everybody else knew that it was a good goal. So you saw some of the frustration, I think, boil over on that. And I think a lot of the players and a lot of hockey fans are trying to figure out exactly what is a goal, what isn't a goal, what is goaltender interference, and what isn't goaltender interference. I think we saw two examples of that late in the last couple of games. One, the Matthews goal, and the other when Frederick Anderson had a player literally fallen on top of him, and that was ruled a good goal. So the officials, I think, probably were under the gun a little bit. It was interesting watching Wes McCauley making his emphatic no goal call. But I think we need to have, and I'm sure that the managers were talking to the officials department about what are you looking for, when you're asked to do goaltender interference? And I think that's a big part of what they're trying to get cleared up, because sometimes I think they overthink the situation instead of watching it at full speed and then realizing that, maybe that's what it is, or whether it's goaltender interference or not.
Absolutely. You know what? That was definitely one question that I wanted to run by you today and get your opinion on with the goaltender interference, and I guess the coach's challenge in full perspective, but more so towards the goaltending issue. As you just mentioned, when the Maple Leafs played Colorado Avalanche, John Bernier apparently was interfered by Austin Matthews, and I say apparently with heavy quotations because that was something that I didn't feel was correct. But then, like you said, with the game against the Chicago Blackhawks, with Artem Anisimov falling on Anderson, some points thought where Polak pushed Anisimov, where I don't think I saw pushes at all, and a lot of other media and even friends and family, everyone does not see the push. So him falling and really putting Anderson in a position to make the save. And then you also have Connor McDavid's. I'm going to attach to that as well when he played the Calgary Flames, where he was bowling down the side with his amazing speed and cut through the front of the net and had a back checker come by, and after he didn't get the goal and has got put in from his teammate, and they say that McDavid interfered with the goaltender stick and it got stuck in him. But if you look at the video, you don't notice that. So obviously, like you said, there's an issue that needs to get brought up. What do you feel that the refs can potentially do better, or what can be done to improve this?
Well, one of the things I think, and whether they get any help from Toronto or not on this, if they're not and they're viewing it on that little tablet, then I think that's probably an issue. And if it's just them making the decision, then maybe that's also an issue. And I know that the War Room, has some sort of input, I would hope. But ultimately, I think on something like that, on a goal call that is viewed to be goaltender interference, it's in the hands of the two guys who are looking at it on the tablet. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe that should be just three guys with their interpretation, as opposed to how many referees do they have? Probably about, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 guys. Yeah. So everybody has a different interpretation of that. And I think that's one of the areas that has to be across the board made it exactly the same. And that's going to be something that I think the league has to look into, as to whether it's in the hands of the game officials or whether it's in the hands of the guys in the war room. And I think that's one of the aspects that's going to happen. Whether it's a goal or not a goal, whether it went in the net and that sort of thing is in the hands of the guys in Toronto. But goaltender interference and things of that nature is in the hands of the game officials, and I think we're getting too many interpretations, and that's probably what's causing all of the distraction and all of the change that's going on.
Absolutely, and the big thing is it's in terms of the coach's challenge, which gears a lot towards goaltender interference. I am a fan of the coaching challenge. I know it delays the game in certain ways, but it gets some calls right? That's the whole point of this. And if it's used incorrectly from the coach, then you lose your timeout, which I also like. I think the coaching challenge is a good addition to the game. However, the call being right is the big thing. And with the goaltending interference, that is something that, the fans want to see get right and see. The big word, I think, and you might agree with this, Joe, is consistency with it. What is it? What is the contact? What is not allowed from the players? And maintain that consistency, where I see like that Chicago game, that should have not been a goal. And thankfully, Nylander gets the winner in overtime and a penalty shot for the Leafs to get 2 points in the win, which is great for the Maple Leafs. But those types of calls where you call a goal back, or when you call a goal that shouldn't have been a goal, that can really determine the effect of a team making the playoffs by not 1 point, or not winning first place, or even not winning the Stanley Cup. We can go back to when Dallas played Buffalo when Brett Hall's foot was in the crease. So where they're probably hoping that they had the coach's challenge back then do the Sabres. But with this whole thing in general, it's just maintaining consistency.
Well, when they first started this video review, there wasn't internet and there wasn't a war room, and so there were 30 different guys at that time, or how many teams there were. I'm not sure if it was 30 at that point, but there might have been. So there were 30 different guys in 30 different rinks who had an interpretation of whether the goal was in or not, and that's all they had to do. One night we were in St. Louis, and it was maybe one of the last games ever, but it was not being televised. We were doing the game on radio. And there was a scramble around the Leaf goal, and play went on, and then there was a whistle, and then the horn went, and the referees went over and put the headsets on at the penalty box. And we were wondering, okay, what are they looking at? Because there's no TV. And all of a sudden there was a pointing to the center ice dot that a goal was being awarded, and now we really lose it because there's no TV coverage. So how are they, what are they doing? And at the end of the game, I asked Grant Fuhrer, who was playing for the Leafs at the time, what happened, and he said, well, Joe, you won't believe this, but the video goal judge upstairs said he saw the puck in the net with his binoculars.
Oh, my God.
That's gone from one extreme to maybe the other, but the bottom line is that there were 30 different interpretations. Yep. And I think what you need is less interpretations. You need 4 or 5 guys, whoever man the war room, to make these decisions, because they're making them for all of the games, and that is how they interpret whether it's a goaltender interference or not. And I think it's difficult for game officials on the ice to have different interpretations because there's so many of them. So maybe that's the way it has to go.
Absolutely. Joe Bowen joining myself, Dave McCaig, here on the Game Sports Show. Moving on from that kind of topic, because we do have some points to get into in terms of the Maple Leafs. Toronto, the few topics I would love to get your opinion and insight on, Joe, is the Leafs are getting ready for the second half of the season. They're going into they're third in the Atlantic with 28, 18, and 5 record for 61 points. 5 points behind the Bruins, who have a 3-game in hand on the Leafs, and 10 points behind on the Lightning for first. However, 15 points ahead of the Wings are the Leafs. And, as everybody knows, when you're third place in your division, you do move on to the playoffs. I don't even want to say that word yet because anything could change in the world of hockey. But the Leafs had a first half that was obviously had some inconsistent times where they had a little bit of losing streaks here and there. They had some lot of upsides as well, especially coming out of the gate hot. How do you feel about the Leafs in the first half of the season, and what stuck out to you going into this second half?
Well, I don't know if you would say that they're better than they were a year ago. Overall, I think point totals are showing that they're probably about the same. Yep. Some players have done better. Zach Hyman is going to eclipse his point total from a year ago, but Austin Matthews is going to be probably where he was about a year ago, despite the fact that he was out for a while with injury. Yep. Nylander is about the same. But the bottom line is the rest of their division has been absolutely horrid.
Yep.
And so they have a 15-game or 15-point cushion, which takes a lot of the emergency, I guess, out of their game a little bit, and maybe some of the intensity. And that's going to be a difficult thing going forward. Now, having said that, of the last 31 games that they have, 13 of them are going to be against those teams that are so far behind them. They've yet to play Buffalo. In fact, they won't play Buffalo until after the trade deadline. So we can only imagine what that lineup's going to look like at that particular point. So there's 4 games there, 2 more against Montreal, 2 more against Ottawa, and Detroit, they have 2 more. So Buffalo has gone with a hot streak currently, and they've played a lot of those teams, including 3 times against Montreal, to sweep that. And so if the Leafs can at least get hot against those teams, they also have 2 games left, I think maybe 3 games left with Tampa Bay, and 2 more with Boston, including one this weekend. So if they decided that they could and get themselves geared up to saying, let's see if we can't catch Boston and maybe even Tampa, they can get some emergency back into their game. Now, they're 5-2-3 in their last 10, and that's, despite the fact that they were losing games in overtime, and I think under those circumstances, at least they're holding their own. But if they could get into a bit of a hot streak because of their schedule, they might be able to catch one of those 2 teams ahead of them, even though they have that big cushion behind them.
Absolutely. You said the big word, when you have, like you said just there, with the 15-point lead over the Wings, that kind of changes that kind of the mindset mentally. And that's what I kind of wanted to bring up, because as we lean in towards the deadline discussion here, the Leafs having that, does that affect them in the trade deadline? Does that make them not be eager to make that move? I know it depends on how they do from now until the deadline, obviously. Who knows what's going to happen if they go extremely hot, or if they go hot and cold, or God forbid if they go cold. But when you look at that, does that say, you know what, maybe I don't have to trade this particular individual or 2, or prospect or 2, or draft pick or 2 for this particular player, because we have this cushion. We have a chance to catch the Bruins for second. They're a bit behind Tampa, which would be a bit more difficult to catch up, not impossible, but especially with them having injury problems themselves, but they're expecting Hedman to come back soon, so that's a big loss for Tampa. But for the Leafs, does that affect them mentally in terms of being so far ahead of the Red Wings going into the deadline?
Well, the whole idea is to get into the postseason, and from that point on, you never know what might happen. So I think that everyone has certainly had the opinion that they need to try to improve their blue line. Well, they're in a list of 30 teams that probably are looking to improve their blue line. Then you have to decide which player are you going to target and how much is that going to cost you. And if it means any of the young players that they have, you really have to think very hard about that and really try to weigh who you're getting and what you're going to have to pay for it. I don't see them making any kind of a major move. I think that it would be counterproductive. Their 5-year plan is way ahead of schedule.
Absolutely.
And having said that, I think the one virtue that they have shown in order to get this far has been patience. Patience in allowing young players to play and develop. A farm team that is by far the best team in the American Hockey League, and lots of players to draw on there. Again, contracts will weigh into it. How many people can they keep? If the expansion is in fact coming, where would you move people? So a lot of things are going to weigh into it, and it'll be a big-time decision, but I can't see them going out and, say, trying to make a monster deal and get a quote-unquote number 1 defense.
No, for sure. And I think the big thing is when you go in, type of moves to make for a big defenseman, like I'm going to use an example. Obviously, I'm not saying this is a rumor or anything like that. Perhaps it is. But Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Those are the type of players that you don't even try to trade for mostly unless you've been trading behind what nobody knows. But those are types of deals that mostly come in the summer. But one name that's been really surfacing, especially on my end, is Erik Branson from the Vancouver Canucks. Now, I'm not saying him in particular, but I feel if Toronto is going to add a defenseman, I feel that he would be the right guy. A good stay-at-home defenseman, a big body back there. But once again, what do you have to sacrifice? When you look at Travis Dermott, who's come up through the ranks this year and who has done an impressive job on the back end, and an individual like myself where Jake Gardiner, I've been hit and miss in terms of how I feel he is, but you know what, he's doing well. The defense is doing fine. You got Riley and Zaitsev, whom are out of the lineup, whom we expect back very soon and will be welcome back extremely. So with the full lineup back, maybe that's what they go with and don't make moves. But I'm sure if someone like a Gabranson, someone like who can be in the top 4 or anything like that, without sacrificing too much of the future, it definitely makes sense for the Leafs.
Well, it makes sense, but again, it's the price tag, and you have to. The Jim Benning is not going to, take an old 57 Chevy for it. So you better make sure that the price tag makes a lot of sense. They've got a lot of very young defensemen coming. They've drafted the last draft in Chicago. They drafted a number of defensemen. Liljegren is playing at this point at the American Hockey League level, and as I say, their team is excelling. So there's a lot of defensemen coming in the organization, and again, that word patience is sometimes a difficult thing to swallow. It's the old adage of the two buzzards sitting on the hydro line, and one says to the other, "Patience, my ass, I'm going to kill something."
Absolutely.
So sometimes you've got to talk your buzzard friend into saying, "Just wait, something will come along." Well, and that's what's coming along in their own organization, and far too often in this organization, we have given away young players to get other people's retreads, only to see those young players blossom in other uniforms. So again, I'm on the side of patience. I think that their defense is good enough to play in the playoffs and good enough to win in the playoffs. And I think that what you've got to make sure is that you don't give the farm away just to spite your face. Something like Ekman-Larsson. The last time I checked, he has the worst plus-minus in the National Hockey League.
Good point. Very good point. You see, and those patience has been the key that Leaf fans haven't been used to because of, like you said, we've been making moves before and seeing other players develop in other jerseys. And you guys, seeing guys like Dermott coming up and the development of Riley, who's been with the team since you drafted, and seeing the growth. And, Borgman, that's another, I'm a big fan of Andres Borgman. I feel that he's going to be a tremendous presence back there as he develops as well. And he's not as young as everyone may think he is, but he is still young. So it's a good fit to see these young guys coming up, and I couldn't agree more for sure, Joe. Couple more things before we let you go. JVR is somebody who is mentioned in trade talks. Tyler Bozak, even to Kasperi Kapanen, we already touched to, the young guys not getting moved. But for JVR or Bozak to get traded, I feel that those kind of rumors surfacing would be kind of ridiculous for Leafs to do. I know they also have expiring contracts going into next year where when it comes to making extensions for down the road for Nylander, for Marner, for Matthews, and so on and so forth. But maybe these are certain guys that you can use as own rentals, it seems. I feel that if you move JVR, that's counterproductive. Or Bozak, everyone's looking for that type of centerman that Bozak is, and everyone wants a JVR. Everyone does. It's just amazing of a talent that he is. Does it make sense for the Leafs to keep them as own rentals and go into the offseason and hopefully re-sign these guys for a pretty decent price?
Well, both of them are very key contributors, and unless you can replace them, and I'm not sure that they can at this particular point, even with what they have down in on the farm team, you're going to lose them. And I agree. I think that maybe I would think that Van Riemsdyk would be the one that they would target to try to re-sign. But I think that both of them would be counterproductive to let them go at this particular point and not get someone of the same ilk in return. And that seems a little bit strange when you think that you're going to be trading someone to another team that's going to be giving you the same thing back. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, for sure. And a player that I really want to give kudos to the Leafs, who I think has been the heart and soul of the Leafs this year, is Frederik Andersen. I feel in goal, he has been absolutely amazing this year. And if anyone had doubts before that when he came into Toronto, they definitely should not have them now. They definitely have a team offensively that's well put together. Defensively, that is going through growing pains. They got a lot of young guys back there. They're gonna come around, like you said, a good team that could fit in the playoffs defensively. And obviously they have the goaltending, and they begin getting good support from Curtis McElhaney as well. Joel, the thing we're gonna get to last before I let you go is, your son. I want to talk to about David and how he's right now he's playing for the Stouffville Spirit in the OJHL, I believe, and he's also been drafted by the Sudbury Wolves, where he came into mid-game. And from knowing how a proud father is, in terms of my father, was very proud when I played and loved seeing your son wearing a jersey. How you must be proud of your son so far early in his career.
Well, yeah, I am, obviously. He's on an awful team down here, and he's getting about 50 and 60 shots a night. His statistics don't look very good, but he isn't getting an awful lot of help. But as I said to him, you're trying to make a team that's not that you're not playing for this year, so you might as well get lots of action and lots of experience, and that's what he's doing. Yeah. He's certainly going to go back and try to make the Wolves next year. He was signed by them this year, so he's I guess their third goalie in their program. He got called up once to play. Ended up playing half a period in Erie, so he's had a little bit of a taste, and excuse me, and he's working at it. He's working hard at it, and he's getting better. So we'll see what happens next time, but it's a proud moment, but thank goodness his grandfather was a good goalie, because his dad wasn't a very good one. So at least the generation jump has at least given him at least a chance.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? The road to the OHL, the road to the AHL, the road to the NHL, to whatever league gets up in professional, the road does get tough, but hard work always pays off, and I wish best of luck to him as well going forward in his career. Joe, I wanted to say thank you for coming on by. As always, I know you're no stranger to the show. Would like to have you on again soon, my friend, as we get into the playoff hunt.
All right, we'll talk to you then.
Absolutely. It's Dave McCaig here. That was Joe Bowen. We're going to hear from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to talk some Soo Greyhound sports here in Sault Ste. Marie, and then we're going to talk a little bit more NHL. You don't want to miss anything. We'll be right back after these messages.
The Game Sports Show would like to thank an additional home to the Game Sports Show, Canadian franchise Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, located on 601 Great Northern Road, Sault Ste. Marie. Come in and join Boston Pizza for its numerous specials that are offered. After 9 p.m. daily, come in to Boston Pizza for $9 schooners, $4 rail drinks, and delicious food. Boston Pizza, Sault Ste. Marie, you're among friends.
Hi, this is Joe Bowen, and you're listening to the Game Sports Show from Sault Ste. Marie.
Welcome back to the Game Sports Show. Yours truly, David McCaig, Dane alongside me, Justin alongside me, and we had Paul Maurice and Joe Bowen stop on by. Very special interviews. And now to conclude the show, be myself, Justin, and Dane. We're going to be talking local sports, the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and a little bit of professional hockey from our end as well before we conclude tonight's episode. And we're here live at Boston Pizza, where we've been all night, where it's going to be the home to the big party, the big game party, if you will, for the Super Bowl Sunday between the New England Patriots and the Philadelphia Eagles. $20 tickets get you entry into the door price for a 55-inch TV. Then has some activities going on here at Boston Pizza. Lots of reservations are already being booked. There's still space left, though, and it's can't be waiting too much longer to book your reservation. So what are you waiting for? If you haven't booked it, get on down to Boston Pizza and talk to the friendly and great staff here. Book your seat today, because that's a game that you for sure do not want to miss. So, Justin, Dane, we're going to talk about the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, who had a very impressive week. They just swept the weekend, winning 3 this weekend, including wins against Barrie and including wins against Saginaw, 5-2 win against Saginaw. And they also won on Wednesday against the Sudbury Wolves, the 4-0 win against the Sudbury Wolves, where Philadelphia's Flyers prospect Morgan Frost had a goal and 2 assists, with Matthew Villalta stopping all 22 shots he faced as the Soo Greyhounds earned their 4th win of the season, defeating Sudbury 4-0. Other goal scorers in the game were Taylor Radish, Jordan Sambrook, Brett Jacklin as well, and Jack Kapalka also had a pair of assists. And the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, the little statistic here, outshot Sudbury 30-22. And now the Greyhounds improved to an OHL best 41-5-2-1 with wins in 8 of their last 10 outings. Very impressive indeed for the OHL's best Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. Don't you think, Dane?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of getting back to normal after the 2 games that we lost. And it's good to see. Keep it going, guys.
Absolutely. And Justin, with the Hounds right now, it's big to have the wins like they said last weekend to get back in the winning ways. Big win against Sudbury. And this weekend, they play Friday at 7:07 at the SR Center, again against Saginaw. And they also play Sunday against the Erie Otters at 2 p.m. The next week, they start their games Thursday as they visit Niagara at 7 o'clock. Very important for the Hounds to keep this winning streak going.
Oh, definitely. It's nice to see that they've kind of settled back down and started playing their game again over, the last 10 days since we had our last show last week. They settled down over the weekend where they played 3 straight last weekend, Friday, Saturday, and then in Saginaw Sunday with the 4 goals in 5 minutes against Saginaw, and looks like they kept it going last night against Sudbury. So should be a good one tomorrow, and then hopefully they score a few more and set us up for a good big game party here on Sunday.
Absolutely. So the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds get back to winning ways, and always good to see shutouts. Goaltending's getting there, as they kind of call it, a hat trick for a goalie or stuff like that. It's good for goalies to get individual awards like that, and a big 22-save win yesterday for Villalta for the Hounds to get the W. And Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, we do plan to get them as guests in the very near future, still working everything out. They're extremely busy right now with games or practices, a lot going on, so we'll keep you posted with when the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds players and staff and everything's going to be coming on the Game Sports Show as the season progresses. So, fellas, we're going to move on from the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, kind of keep the show motoring. As you know, we had Paul Maurice and Joe Bowen here. We used a lot of time towards our very special guests, obviously. So we're going to jump right into the NHL. And something that I want to talk about that happened this past weekend, we're going to talk about it briefly just for a couple minutes, the NHL All-Star Game. I know we were talking about it last week, but now that we saw the All-Star Game, we're now here sitting at Boston Pizza, enjoying some great Molson products we are. Now we can kind of say how you liked the game. I want to know if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what can be improved, or if it really even mattered, or if you didn't even really fully watch it. You can be 100% honest, as maybe you had something going on. But Justin, what do you feel about the All-Star Game this past week and how'd it go?
You know what? I don't like the All-Star Game as a media, like a TV event. I like watching the skills competition, and I liked even NFL had the Pro Bowl and they had their own skills competition, and that was nice. But the one thing I took from watching the whole All-Star festivities on the weekend was at one point I saw a video online of Carey Price grabbing jerseys from kids in the stands and going out on the ice and getting players to sign them for him. And that kind of clicked in my head, and I think that's what the All-Star Weekend is supposed to be all about. These players can interact with the younger fans, and the fans get a chance to see these guys up close and personal. It was good for me to see that.
Absolutely, it is certainly good to see that. And I got to pick out something before I go to Dane. I'll let Dane have the final thought with the All-Star Game. The one thing I certainly enjoyed was the skills competition. Obviously, Connor McDavid winning the fastest skater, Brock Besser winning the accuracy shooting, Austin Matthews definitely not winning the stick handling relay. It was Johnny Gaudreau, but with those types of games, it is for the fans to see and really showcase their skill. Marc-Andre Fleury with the consecutive save streak. This guy's just having one heck of a season, like loving life right now. And in the All-Star Game, you had the Pacific Division win the game against the Atlantic Division, and that's Gerard Gallant, the Las Vegas coach right now, enjoying a great year. So at the end of the day, it was great entertainment. But one thing I want to point out, and I pointed this out to Joe earlier in the show, is Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel doing the hand signal. The Austin Matthews hand signal is certainly becoming a popular trend in the National Hockey League, and it's obviously referring to the atrocious calls in terms of goaltender interference, or the inconsistent calls is the best way to put it. But with Austin Matthews doing that and Jack Eichel, the entertainment for the crowd, even the ref got a good kick out of it. It also for the enjoyment. And how about Kucherov? 4 goals in that first game to showcase his speed. I love the 3-on-3. And they actually are playing for something. Where last week we touched on, they are playing for $1 million. You get $100,000 each, and they put it towards charity. Then you have Brock Besser, who also won a car. And I believe he said he was thinking about giving it to his parents. So I'm sure he had no problem giving that over to his parents. So the little things that went along there with the All-Star Game, the fun stuff like the skills competition, like you said, and the fun stuff with Matthews and Eichel, that's what I like to see, and that is what it's for. In my opinion, it's for the fans. I couldn't agree more. Dane?
Yeah, you know what? I think there was a couple really good moments in the All-Star game this year. Brian Boyle replacing Taylor Hall was a big moment. Just missed out on winning the best shooter competition or the accuracy shot to Brock Besser. Coming back from leukemia, being diagnosed with that in September of 2017 there. So it's kind of nice to see him rebound from that and be able to, play in the All-Star game. So kudos to that. Brock Besser, I think the guy pretty much doubled his salary this year with the winnings he got just through the All-Star game with being MVP and then having the best shooting competition there with the accuracy. So that was nice to see. And you know what? Overall, I just thought the game was more competitive this year. Like you were saying, Dave, there's a lot more to play for, $1 million on the line. I think compared to last year, you didn't see those, the 10-9 kind of games. It seemed like, there was a little bit, the guys out there were, out there to kind of win the games. So, yeah, no, it was definitely more competitive. And, I've never been a big all-star guy. I think at the end of the day, it's mostly for the kids, and the kids love it. They love the skills competition. But, yeah, it was definitely a little bit more exciting than it usually is this year. So I liked it. I liked it.
Absolutely, definitely more exciting. You pointed out a good point with Brian Boyle and also the defense. I feel definitely kudos to Brian Boyle this season and playing and replacing Taylor Hall there. But definitely the defense. I like that. For sure. Another news in the NHL before we kind of move on to our trade deadline topic. Jaromir Jagr, fellas. This guy is an absolute legend in my eyes. Grew up, I was able to enjoy the presence of Jaromir Jagr in the National Hockey League. 45 years young. It's not his birthday, though, but he is 45 years young. And he's no longer with the Calgary Flames after being placed on waivers and being loaned to Czech Republic to play. Jaromir Jagr, Dane. Are his days done in the National Hockey League? Or is he going to the Olympics now? Or is Jagr going to get dealt? Or what's going to go on here? What do you think?
Yeah, I think his days in the NHL are done. He's 46 years old. How impressive to be competitive in the league, the best league in the world, kind of like when it comes to hockey. Just reading right now on online, CBC's saying that the Czech arenas are selling out in anticipation for Jaromir Jagr's return back home. So, I think the fans back home are definitely excited to see, probably easily the best Czech player that's ever played the game to come back home. And you know what? Like I said, 46 years old and the guy's still playing professional hockey. It's unreal. And you know what? The guy's trained. And if you really look into his training, what he does, stay in shape and stuff like that and be able to play at this age, it's unreal. So I think the Czech Republic would love for him to represent his country in the Olympics. I'm not sure where his stance is on that, but you know what? I think the guy just loves the game at the end of the day, and it doesn't really matter where he plays. He went on waivers. Calgary put him on waivers, and now he's going back home to play. And I know the people back home are obviously excited for him to return to Czech Republic. So, yeah, good for him.
Absolutely. And Jaromir Jagr, I know one thing that you're probably going to touch on is Jagr says he's far from finished. And I do not believe him because let's just say that he's 45 years old and he's still playing professional hockey. And he says that he's not healthy, but he's far from finished. Justin, what's your thoughts?
Well, you know what? There's a guy like Jagr. There's some 20-some-year-old players in the NHL that don't have the same smile on their face that Jagr has at 46.
Or in the same shape.
Oh, no. The guy's training regime is insane. And I see the benefit to NHL teams wanting to keep this guy on their roster because young guys can learn from him. Whether the young guys are willing to learn or not is a different story. But even if that was his last game that we saw him, I think it was New Year's Eve, 2017 was his last game with the Flames. If that's the last we've seen of him in the NHL, that's still. What did he get drafted? 93? Is that a 25-year career?
He got drafted in 1990.
1990. So 27. He's been in the league longer than Gary Bettman.
Longer than I've been born. And we're going to get to Bettman, but he's been in the league longer than I've been born.
So that's a pretty big deal. Yeah. There's not many of these guys. And I think 10, 15 years from now, people are going to be talking like Jaromir Jagr, like we were talking about Wayne Gretzky. That's not quite in the same regard we hold Wayne Gretzky, but the durability of Jagr, they don't make them like that. The last guy to stick around like that was probably Gordie Howe.
Yeah. Even Chris Chelios, if you want to give him a little shout-out, too. Another guy. Jagr, 149 points in one season in 1995 with 62 goals 87 assists. Almost sounds like my Pee Wee days. Just kidding. Had to go there. So Jaromir Jagr, do I think he's done? The National Hockey League, I'm going to have to say I think he may be, unless something from the deadline or something happens. But definitely playing in Czech Republic, I think he should continue doing it and enjoy playing at home. And if he can join the Olympics, do it. Be a part of those Olympic festivities and represent your country. Fellas, a couple more points before we move on to our trade deadline topic, and then we get to multiple choice. We got a little bit more time here. The top 4 teams of the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. I want you to quickly pick your 4 on each side, and I kind of want you to elaborate why 2 these are your teams that you're picking. Dane, this was a topic that you brought forward, so I'm going to let you spearhead this and go first. Top 4 teams from either side, favorite to win the Cup at this current point in the season.
Yeah, I think you mean like top 4 overall, 2 being on each side. So my pick for the Eastern Conference is going to be, I'm going to go off the board a little bit. I like the Columbus Blue Jackets. I like what Tortorella's done with the team there. I think, teams like Washington are kind of on the downhill there. Pittsburgh, I think, is just on the verge or not even in a playoff spot right now, and I think you can't count out Tampa. Tampa's been a favorite for a couple years now, and, Kucherov's playing the best hockey he's ever played. A lot of people after Stamkos broke his leg maybe thought he wasn't going to be, the same player that he was, and he's come back, and he's playing unreal right now. Victor Hedman's my pick for the Norris Trophy winner this year. I think he's one of the best defensemen in the league. So when it comes to the West, the West is pretty tricky right now. Vegas might be second place overall in the NHL right now. Do I think they're going to make it to the Western Conference Finals? No. I do foresee Nashville being back in there. When it comes to the Oilers division, my team, it's pretty tough to pick. You got teams that are kind of growing a little bit old with the California teams. You got LA, you got Anaheim, and San Jose. So it's kind of tough, maybe my Oilers sneak back in the playoffs, but if I got to pick, I like Nashville. Nashville versus San Jose is going to be my Cup or my Western Conference final, and I think it's going to be a Nashville Lightning final with the Lightning coming on top.
Already a bold prediction going with the Lightning making the playoffs. Lightning have to get through the Toronto Maple Leafs to get there, don't you? No, I'm being optimistic. I'm going to go with mine here first before I go over to you, Justin. Top 4 from the West side. In my mind, I'm going with Vegas, Nashville, Winnipeg, and St. Louis. I've always been a fan of St. Louis going into this year, I feel like, and they've been trade talks, rumors. They're all over the rumor front. They've even been rumored to go after Carey Price. Now, if that trade is true, if St. Louis Blues gets Carey Price, that just puts them over the top, in my opinion. But right now, what team am I scared for most in the West is between the Jets and Nashville. I'll tell you why the Jets. Yes, we did just have Paul Maurice on the show, but I'm not going that way. I'm just saying, when the Jets get Scheifele and Trouba back at 100% health and where they're at right now and as good as they're doing, and Hellebuck standing on his head and as good as the Jets' D-core is, I would be scared if I was any team in the West. The Jets are a very good hockey team. And like I said, if I had to really narrow it down, I think Vegas is 4 out of the 4th of the 4 I mentioned. Jets are second. I'm going to have to go with Nashville. I can see Nashville moving on to Cup Finals. Mike Fisher coming out of retirement that we're going to kind of touch on a bit perhaps later on in the show in our multiple choice segment or maybe our farewell segments after this year as we thought he was done, but he's back. And with Vegas right now, I like what they're doing, but I feel like in the playoffs, I don't know if that's going to be I don't know. I've doubted Vegas all year in their first place, so I feel like that's not the expert thing to say. But Nashville and the Jets, those are the 2 teams that I am definitely looking at. But Nashville does stick out to me, but definitely don't count out those Jets. But I'm definitely picking Nashville from that side. And the East side, I got to go Toronto, Tampa, Columbus, Washington. Easy 4 picks, in my opinion. Even over Boston, I feel that Toronto has to get through Tampa in that second round to move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Columbus would have to get through Washington. Those are your final 4, and I know if Pittsburgh squeezes in, you got to watch out for Pittsburgh. This team's won the Cup back-to-back, so I don't care that they're out of the playoffs right now. This is a team that you got to watch for. So they're just into the playoffs right now, actually, sorry. So I'm going to go bold. I need to believe. I need to believe. I'm saying Toronto's moving on past Tampa in the second round. I know I've said different on other shows, but I got to believe here. I'm going to go the belief route and say Toronto is making the Cup Finals against Nashville this year. I did say earlier this year I thought maybe it would be perhaps Tampa St. Louis was an early prediction of mine. But I feel when Toronto, if they make a couple moves at the deadline, maybe. If they don't, those young D are looking pretty good right now. I like what they bring to the table. So you know what? Nashville from the West, Toronto from the East, my early prediction erases my St. Louis and Tampa final that I predicted earlier this year. Fans call me crazy out there, call me a biased Leaf fan, but I like what Toronto's doing. I think in the playoffs, they have a chance, I believe. Justin, I'll let you finish this topic.
Oof. Well, that's a tough one to follow up, but I think, I don't know, from the West, my top four, I'm going to say Winnipeg, Nashville, Dallas, Vegas. I think Dallas with Seguin playing for a big contract coming up, Hitchcock showing that he's got something to prove, something still there. I think those are my teams. When it comes down to it, it's probably, tonight we're having a preview of what the West Final is going to be with Vegas and Winnipeg.
Oh.
But I'm probably going to take the Jets to move on from that. The Jets have been too good right now, and without having Trouba and without having Scheifele, they only get better. And that's not even adding anything at the trade deadline. That's just adding your own guys to get better. As far as the East goes, it's wide open. It is, 100%. Like, Pittsburgh could sneak in. The Devils, in my head, I think are overachieving right now.
Absolutely.
But they might be the real deal. The only way these teams, kind of go to the next level is you beat one of these Goliaths, the Pittsburghs, the Washingtons, and the Tampas, the Bostons. Those are the teams you got to beat. As far as the East goes, my final four, I'm going to take Pittsburgh, I'm going to take Washington, I'm going to take Tampa, I'm going to take Toronto. The East final goes, Toronto, Washington. Can we do that?
Oh, yes, we could. Yeah.
We can do that. And then I'm going to go off the board here totally, and we're going to have an all-Canadian Stanley Cup final. Take Jets and Leafs. That's overachieve a little bit. That's where I'm going.
Definitely full of optimism at this table for that fun little topic. As a betting man, there's a lot of teams that can make a definitely wide open approach going to the playoffs and definitely be surprises going forward. Good topic there, Dane, to definitely bring up, and a topic that I'm going to let you also touch on. Max Talbot of the Edmonton Oilers. If anyone remembers him, he's the goaltender of the Edmonton Oilers this year for the lonely Edmonton Oilers so far. He said, quote unquote, the Edmonton Oilers are making the playoffs. You got Dave McCaig here alongside Justin Hykel and Dane Hancherow. And I'm going to give Dane the floor for quickly here, as we're getting a bit more crunch for time. But do you care to comment on how Max Talbot believes the Edmonton Oilers are going to make the playoffs? Justin and I will take a back seat to this and let you comment.
Oh, yeah, I think you have to have the belief that you're going to make it. The team's only minus Jordan Eberle replaced with, Ryan Strome to... which is the only difference this year. And, from going from, potentially almost being in the Western Conference Finals, one game off to, not even being a playoff team. I think there's a lot of similarities from both teams from last year. Andre Sekera definitely hurt being out at the start of the year, but, we are down 3-1 right now against Colorado, who's a team that we're chasing, so it really doesn't help the cause. But if you look at the schedule, Edmonton has a lot of division games up ahead against teams in their division, so in the sense they kind of control a little bit of their own destiny, but definitely got to go on a run. Cam Talbot, he says that he's one guy that really needs to step up and be the goaltender that he was last year, and if he can't kind of get back to that same way he was playing last year, then I don't think the Oilers really have a chance. After 10 years of not making the playoffs and, teasing me with a little run last year, it's going to really break my heart not to see them make it again this year. But, I always do believe in my team. And, we have Connor McDavid, who's, in my opinion, the best player in the NHL, maybe behind Sidney Crosby. So we'll see what happens. There's still 33 games to go. And like I said, we got a lot of division games coming up. So we do still have a chance. We're not out of it yet.
Optimism from that side of the table as well, but at least you didn't say that they're going to make the playoffs. I like the little bit of belief in terms of that there's still a lot of games left, because there is a lot of games left. Anything can happen. in those games leading up to the trade deadline and to the conclusion of the National Hockey League season. Fellas, just to jump into the little trade deadline talk again, once again, last week we talked about a little bit. It's coming closer, and it's coming closer, and it's coming closer. We're just weeks away from the All-Star, the All-Star break has already passed. The trade deadline we're weeks away from, and teams are going to be very cautious, I feel, in making deals, but there's a lot of players out there and open for trade. Lots of players available. Mike Green. You have people feel that Jack Johnson is available with Columbus. He's already requested a trade, just to name a couple guys. But at the end of the day, is it going to be a very busy deadline? I just want to talk about if you feel like it's going to be a very busy deadline and a little bit of brief points. So I'm going to go around the table here to you guys, and I'm going to start with you, Justin, actually, about if you feel like it's just going to be a busy deadline at all, and what team are you specifically looking out for in the deadline, if there is a team you're looking out for?
Well, as far as as a team I'm looking out for goes, I think Vegas is a team to watch. Vegas and the Rangers. I think as far as what the Rangers do in terms of selling and building up prospects, because even in my lifetime, the Rangers have never really seemed like a team that's ever had to rebuild. They've always been a powerhouse. They've always been good. They've always been the New York Rangers. They've never been a team that has had to, take a step back and readjust. And I think now is a time where the Rangers have to kind of restock the cupboards, like where the Leafs were 2 years ago. And where a team like Vegas goes, I think Vegas has a surplus of defensemen in a league where defensemen are at a premium. Maybe it'd be interesting to see that Vegas add someone like Rick Nash. Just in a power play move. That's just something interesting out there. I think there's a couple big deals to be made. But truth be told, we always spend every trade deadline waiting for this big blockbuster deal, and they usually go down a week or two ahead of time.
And the big thing is that those trades take time to happen. That's why they're not just premium trades. But yes or no, do you feel like it's going to be an active deadline, though?
I think it's going to be more active than last year. I think there's too many teams that are in the hunt right now to not be buyers. Whereas, last year there was a more, defining line, whereas these teams are going to be sellers, these teams are going to be buyers. This year there's a lot of teams that are still on the cusp.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with the New York Rangers. I'm going to quick comment here before I go over today. I got to say that this deadline, maybe on the active front, but definitely a lot of teams are going to be snooping in and looking for teams. But I like that point with Rick Nash going to Vegas. They would like to have that. And he has a contract left. You have someone like James Neal who's potentially leaving next year. You got David Perron who's potentially leaving next year. Vegas wants to remain competitive. They're rating this league. They're top in the NHL right now. They're one of the top teams. So to get someone like Nash, very interesting. A team that I feel like being very active is going to be the Columbus Blue Jackets. I feel like that's a team that's going to be really looking out for certain guys. Defensively, they're pretty good. I feel like they wouldn't be shy to add another top six forward to that mix and maybe a veteran presence to really kind of put Columbus over the top in a pretty competitive division that features Washington, Pittsburgh, and New Jersey is doing quite well. I also see New Jersey being a little bit active. I feel like they might be on the Mike Green front. I feel like they have always been a team that wants like an offensive defenseman. They have their defensive defenseman. I feel like that's a team that's going to look really at New Jersey. And I also see Toronto being sort of active in terms of looking towards adding a piece of a defenseman. We know that's an obvious, despite the performance the Leafs defensemen have done so far in the last couple of games with their young guys. Seller-wise, definitely the Rangers are a team selling. Obviously, you got the usual suspects last 3 years. You got Arizona, who probably moving some guys, but not Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That trade doesn't happen until the offseason, in my opinion. It's a big trade to make. Will the Edmonton Oilers be selling? No. If they are selling, they're going to be moving Patrick Maroon, someone like that. If Vegas selling, absolutely not. As I said, they're going to be buying, but if they're moving anybody, it's someone with expired contracts, and they're going to bring in someone who has term. Very active deadline, in my opinion. Better than last year, but not super busy like it was in the early thousands where we saw so many trades, but definitely something to watch this year. Those are the teams, like I mentioned, to definitely keep an eye on. Team that's not going to be active, surprise and bet here, depending on his health with Victor Hedman, Tampa Bay. I feel like they're not going to touch much. Steve Yzerman is very strategic in how he adds players, so that's a team that actually predict will not be active, and same with the Washington Capitals. Dane?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a pretty busy trade deadline. If you kind of look at the list, like there's so many snipers available or just good offensive talent. A lot of it's coming from Canadian teams that, had high hopes this year and just kind of aren't in the mix. Evander Kane's a guy, I think he's going to be dealt for sure. Radim Verbata, Tyler Bozak. It kind of really depends what the Leafs want to do. They're in a playoff position. Do they really want to trade guys like GVR, Komarov, and Bozak, Max Pacioretty, Galchenyuk? Those are. Maybe those are more kind of guys that you deal maybe after the season rather than at the trade deadline. It seems like New York's ready to, unleash a lot of guys. Michael Grabner is a big sniper. Rick Nash. It doesn't seem like if teams have needs for defense, it doesn't seem like there's, too much out there right now. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of teams that are still in the mix right now. I think February 26th is when the trade deadline happens, and I do foresee it being busy, but at the end of the day, it happens every year, it takes for that first team to make that move and, puts pressure on other teams to make moves also, to try to stay ahead of the game. But, I think the Canadian teams are going to really help a lot of guys out. I think, about the only two real good defensemen out there is Erica Branson and Mike Green that are available, but anybody's looking for offensive talent, there's so many guys that are available right now, and I think, if the price is right and the first team that kind of starts making that big splash, if the price is right, you're going to start seeing a lot of other teams start making moves there, so it just takes one to get the rest of the party going there, so we'll see what happens.
One team we didn't mention, the Chicago Blackhawks, last in their division right now. Chicago Blackhawks are the last in their division. Taves and Kane aren't going anywhere. Keith probably is not. But Seabrook open? That contract is not too friendly. Maybe they move that out. They have some young guys. Maybe they look towards the young path because they might be on the outside looking in. Are they going to be out this year? Who knows? There's a long season left. But that's one team that we not forgot to mention, that we omitted to mention because a lot of time left this season. Lots of time left this season. Fellas, we only got handful of minutes left or so before we wrap up the show here tonight, so I'm quickly going to jump into the Maple Leafs little portion of the show here. Justin, we'll talk about the Maple Leafs success after the All-Star break so far, after a win against the New York Islanders last night with Frederik Andersen getting a shutout, Bull getting his first NHL goal, Dermott getting his first goal tonight against the New York Rangers, another shutout, Bull getting another goal. Wow, that rhymes. Try saying that 10 times fast. Bull gets a goal. But definitely a great last couple of games for the Buds. Curtis McElhinney, I'm going to be honest, when they first got McElhinney last season, I had my doubts. I did, as a backup. I am so sorry. I've said it numerous times. I am so sorry. The guy got us to the playoffs, that big save on Crosby against Pittsburgh last year. And the guy's had such a great year this year. He had a couple rough games at the start where they had a lot of questions, where they brought in Calvin Pickard now. But maybe that gave him a little oomph, gave him a little push. The guy has done phenomenal. His last game against Dallas, he had a great showing. And then he plays against New York tonight, gets a shutout. Curtis McElhinney backing up. So the boys are really firing right now. And here I am saying that the fence should be looking at it. They have Bull and Dermott, and they're missing Riley. They're missing basically a good amount of their decor. And they're shutting out guys. They're shutting out the Rangers and the Islanders. Sure, they're not like the Vegas Golden Knights or at this current point, but there's still teams that have offensive talent. And they're shutting them out right now.
I mean, I don't mean to say I told you so, but I'm really going to sit here and just smile at you while you're saying this. Because you seem surprised that this talent was in the pipeline. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they are.
Bull's been waiting almost 7 years to get into the National Hockey League. He's been developing.
All he needed was Roman Polak to get the flu and hit the IR with the flu, which I found a little suspicious this week because I didn't know you could hit the IR with the flu, but hey, it's a new NHL out there. It's 2018, so
I think that the Leafs right now, I still think a D, man. I think these are not the guys that's going to win you those big playoff games yet, but are we a playoff? Like, is the goal to win the cup? Obviously it is, but I feel like a part of this Toronto plan, like Joe Bowen said, the Leafs are far ahead of their plan. Really far ahead of their plan. They're a couple years ahead of the game right now. And that's because the East is so wide open as well. There's a lot of verifying factors, but to get that extra, I think they don't want to be a first round out again this year. I think a goal is definitely a second round is a realistic goal. Internally, that's not going to be announced to the media. That's just my prediction coming from a team goal perspective. If they get past the second round, then it's Stanley Cup Finals bound, because that means you're getting past the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you beat the Boston Bruins to get there most likely. So I think they still need a defenseman, though, Justin. I still think somebody should be looked at for the right price. Don't sell anybody. Just look at Erica Branson is someone I still covet. I think would be a great fit, especially when it comes playoff time for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Dane?
Yeah, I think, if the Leafs are going to trade any guys like Bozak, JVR, and Komarov, I think at the end of the day it has to make their team better going into the playoffs. I don't think the goal is to win the Stanley Cup this year. Great if it somehow happens, highly unlikely. But yeah, if you're going to move a guy like, Bozak or even JVR to say, you're looking for a guy that's just not going to be a rental. You're going to be looking for a guy, that's going to be with the team next season. Because, but at the end of the day, it's like, all of them are UFAs, Komarov, Bozak, and JVR. I think you want something for them at the end of the day, right? Can you really re-sign JVR? Potentially. I don't foresee them re-signing Bozak. It just doesn't make sense of having Matthews and Nylander down the middle and Kadri. So, and you know what? Komarov, I think Komarov's just a good character guy. I think he's a really good third-line guy, fourth-line guy that, bags bodies, plays good defense, has some offensive talent. I think that guy you can get for pretty cheap. I'd bring him back. But, it's really going to be interesting to see what Lou does with the guys this year because, like I said, it makes no sense to trade any of them unless you're going to get a guy that's going to be on the team for a year or two that has contract or maybe a youth player. But like that being said, they are going to the postseason this year. There's no chance that they're going to drop out with how far ahead they are with Detroit there. So if they can get a guy that's going to help them in the long run there and right now and makes their team better at the end of the day, then yeah, I see them making some moves. But other than that, maybe just swinging some draft picks and prospects for a third-line guy or a defenseman.
Absolutely. I feel that they can use JVR as an own rental. They can use Bozak as an own rental and Komarov. Those types of guys are looked for. They're not touching those three guys. Those guys are going nowhere unless Arizona comes up after a couple Molson products and says, "Hi, we'll give you all of our Lekman Larson for JVR and a first." Then okay, you're doing that. Not as the most ridiculous thing I probably ever said on radio, but let me tell you, the point is that they're not going anywhere, those guys. Realistically, the Leafs apparently made an offer for Eric Branson. Apparently they're in talks with Johnson from Columbus. Very interested to see how that would go, though. I feel like Branson's more realistic, affordable. It doesn't alter the culture of the team too much because I like the way this team is developing, and we have a lot of prospects in the pipeline. Justin, lots of prospects in the pipeline. I apologize if I ever sounded like I doubted you before. I never doubted you. I just never been able to see them as much as I see the Leafs play live on TV. But they definitely do. All jokes aside here, Justin, they have some prospects up there that are coming up. And I think right now to solidify a good playoff run, it is to get solidify that D help because I feel Polak may not be the right guy. Borgman will be the right guy. Dermott will be the right guy. I just feel for now, affordable move for Gabranson. It would be a good, realistic option. And I keep batting ahead on Mark Stahl, too, but I think that would be pretty pricey, as Dane was saying. That might have to go down the road that I don't want to go down in terms of JVR, Bozak.
He's in the selling market right now, so, he's a guy that's kind of getting up there in age. I can see them, maybe moving him for, some pieces for the future.
Get this, $5.74 million for 3 years Mark Stahl's owed. 5.7. Now, if you're moving him, you're eating some of that. You're mangiato, as they say in Italian. You're eating some of that contract, which teams don't want to do. It's like the Rangers' Rick Nash. He ain't getting a cheap paycheck either. And we're back to the Leafs here in terms they need that defense. Still, Justin, I think even Joe was saying on the show today, if they can find it for the right price, do it. If not, don't rush for it. Something you can do in the offseason. Quickly to wrap up the topic.
Well, that's the thing. It's premium talent costs premium dollars, talent, picks, prospects, and I don't really know we're at a point where we need to mortgage some of that stuff to just get to the second round, or that's it has to make sense to do it. And with these young guys looking good right now, we got some of the older veteran guys there. I think we're okay right now. If this is the roster we go through the playoffs with, I'm fine with that.
I like that. It's a very good, simple answer. Fellas, I'm getting the beep in the ear that we're going to wrap this up as quickly as we can. We have the multiple choice segment to do, so we're going to jump into that before we conclude. So, fellas, the quick version of the multiple choice segment, I guess that you will. We have 3 questions on the multiple choice segment. We're going to go around, and you're just going to give your answer. And if you're going to give an explanation, make it 5 seconds or less as the buzzing goes off in my ear. Multiple choice segment. If you don't know what the multiple choice segment is, it's when we ask a question. It's a series of 3 questions. We give you an answer. And we got some pretty interesting questions this week. Early Jack Adams favorite. Seems fitting with Paul Maurice being on the show this week. Option 1, Gerard Gallant, Las Vegas Golden Knight coach. Paul Maurice, Winnipeg Jets coach. John Cooper, the Tampa Bay Lightning coach. Dane, your answer.
Gerard Gallant, easy.
Justin?
Same. I'm copying Dane.
I'm going to go with Paul Maurice. If the Jets make the playoffs, finish first in their division, obviously an obvious answer would be Gallant. I'm going off the board and going with Paul Maurice for sure. Second question. Out of the Canadian teams that are in kind of the playoffs, the 3 that we selected, which team has the best chance to go furthest? Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary. Justin?
Based on my previous answer on that, I'm going to say it's a tie between Toronto and Winnipeg.
I like that. Dane?
I think Winnipeg has a bit of a harder road than the Leafs, so, as much as this kills me to say it, I actually think the Leafs have the best shot to go farther in the playoffs than any of the Canadian teams. And Calgary is actually falling out of the playoffs right now, but only 2 points.
Toronto. Of course I'm going with Toronto. Winnipeg there being up there, though. I like that as well. Third and final question, fellas. Calgary relocation. Gary Bettman was talking to Ron McLean in a very... I thought they were going to argue over the on-air radio, on-air television on CBC with for sure, very open. Ron McLean, love it. So blunt with Gary Bettman. And Gary Bettman, special shout out to you. 25 years in the National Hockey League. Effective today, so I got to give you that. So it's only fitting we talk about your potential relocation of Calgary. Yes or no? Quickly. Justin.
No. And no. And no.
Dane.
I think it means too much to the Battle of Alberta, and I think it's more likely that Ottawa moves than Calgary. I think Batman's just trying to play the waiting game to get a little bit more money out of the city of Calgary to build a new rink, and there's not a huge need to move them right now like Ottawa. Calgary's still selling out every game, so I can't see it makes no sense to move them. It's just a waiting game.
Absolutely, Calgary looking for a new arena. Gary Bettman wants that, and Ottawa getting into the mix of getting a new arena, so we know those teams don't want to go anywhere. Expansion to 32 teams, sure, that could be a potential down the road, but is this happening with Calgary with relocation? Absolutely not. Well, fellas, this has been the show. It's been the Game Sports Show. It's been a great show. We talked Sault Ste. Greyhounds, we talked NHL, but most importantly, we talked Paul Maurice. We had an interview with the Winnipeg Jets head coach Paul Maurice and the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Joe Bowen, stopped in as well. Great interviews from both of them. We appreciate Joe and Paul for coming on by. Definitely going to have them in there for more shows in the future. And at the end of the day, we're much thanks to them being on the show. I also got to give a special thanks to Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza here in Sault Ste. Marie, located on Great Northern Road. Mitch Wilson, Aaron Grisdak from Boston Pizza. This is one of the new homes to the Game Sports Show as well, and a special shout out to Mitch Wilson for being a great bartender as always tonight. Scott Nason, as always, the notorious Scott Nason, the board operator here tonight, and to you, the listeners, always stopping on by, and we appreciate your likes, we appreciate your subscribes. We have quite big plans coming that we've been talking about. It's already in motion and already started that I'm going to get to in just a couple seconds here. I got to give a special thanks to Dane. Dane, thanks for coming on by.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Everybody have a good Super Bowl Sunday.
Absolutely. My usual contributors, Dane and Justin. Lastly, Justin, thanks for stopping on by as always, pal.
Always a pleasure. Everybody stay safe this weekend, and make sure you got some DDs on Sunday.
For sure. I'm just going to ask you guys quickly, Pats or Eagles?
Eagles.
Eagles from Justin. Dane?
If I'm a betting man, Patriots, but go Eagles, go. We all need it.
Clean sweep of the board for go Eagles, go. But if I'm a betting man, I couldn't agree with you more, though. Dan, I'm not even going to say those words. So, fellas, it's been yours truly, Dave McCaig. I'm going to wrap up by saying Boston Pizza has their big game party on Sunday. $20 tickets. They got the door prizes, a TV. You don't want to miss that. They're going to have they have space available in the restaurant. Lots of seats are getting taken up quickly and reservation wise for the Super Bowl. So you want to get out to Boston Pizza, contact Boston Pizza, and make sure let you book your seat today. They have activities going on throughout the game as well. Monday, we're going to be back live on 95.1. Myself and Scott Nason will be at the Wicked Sisters, Sault Ste. Michigan, from 6 to 7 live, 7 to 8 pre-recorded. Dane and Justin plan to be with myself as well, as long with Jamie Antonello and Dustin Gronin as well for the final In the Pocket segment of the 2017-2018 season for at Sports Center Bar and Grill Wednesday, then obviously myself, Dane, and Justin will be back here next Thursday at Boston Pizza. Got to give a special additional shout out to our additional sponsors, Sports Center Bar and Grill, North Shore Sports and Auto, The Salon, The Superior Pro Shop, Discover the Canvas in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, The Wicked Sister, and Pingator Cleaners in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And again, the trivia question, if you missed it, the trivia question, who was the captain of Soo Greyhounds when they won the Memorial Cup in 1993? And who is still a part of the organization today when they won the Cup in 1993? 2 questions, one of them being a bonus question for an additional prize. If you can answer both, you may win both prizes, or you may just win one. Let us know what the answer is through our email at thegamesportshow@gmail.com. Again, that's thegamesportshow@gmail.com, or reach out to me on Facebook, David McCaig, or Twitter, or even reach out through the website, as the website is launched, is in effect, www.thegamesportshow.com. Lastly, I got to really stress about the Podomatic issue in terms of mobile. We have upgraded. We have made the special needs necessary to improve your mobile experience for the Game Sports Show. You could download the Podomatic page for now to listen to the show mobilely, or you can open up in your web browser in your phone to listen to it if you're having problems with your mobile phone. On behalf of Justin, Dane, and Scott, and Boston Pizza, Dave McCaig here signing off. Everyone out there, have a very safe weekend, and we'll talk to you next week on the Game Sports Show.